we're at opening ceremony C3.
Yeah.
You've entered the circle.
The nerves are still high. And then we go and we have this beautiful group prayer. We call in directions with our brother Jetty Zuma. And I remember
Jetty.
Yeah, Jetty.
Rising Man movement.
And I remember thinking, I don't know what this is, but it still feels good. We walked off to the rocks and we lined up and we looked at each other. And that was the point. That was the point where I was like, well, where's the exit? Where's the exit? And I don't even know where I am, brother. I remember thinking, what do I have in my bag? How do I get out of here? Oh, man. To be witnessed, to be witnessed was the hardest part. And for me, looking at the man across from me, that was a challenge for sure. But knowing that he was looking at me, my eyes started blinking rapidly. Little tears were welling up. And I didn't know why that was so scary. The only time in my life I'd been stared at like that by a man was right before knuckles would fly. And the staring wasn't that long. It was more of a this kind of situation. But I remember walking away from that back into kind of the larger space, into the shallow, and feeling a great deal of relief. Something had moved in me. And we hadn't talked, we hadn't done any processing, anything like that. We hadn't played any games, but there was relief. I'm not a heavy man, but I came in as a heavy, heavy man. But I didn't know that. My beloved at the time saw that.
Yeah, what was that relief? What was the moment like? And what was the relief that you felt? What was the burden that you got to put down for a moment?
It was being able to put down the mask of I've got it all together. Everything's good. I'm a funny brother. And I like to make jokes and play games. And I was an elementary school teacher by trade at the time. And I always had a smile. And I would be reaffirmed for that. Gee, you're so fun to be around. How do you hang out with classes of little kids for 200 days and you still got energy? I don't know. That's just who I am. But deep down inside, there was a well of grief. Grief that happens from just being alive. And every time I'd experienced grief, I'd just pushed it in because I'd never seen grief. Never seen it. Yeah. I've been to funerals and things like this, and I knew, you cry now. But I'd never actually felt it. And for me to be witnessed was the first time, I think ever, where I started to feel it. And when I started to tear up a little bit, here was the shocking part. The bro across from me didn't reach out and say, it's okay. He didn't try to fix it. He just saw me. I remember shaking, trembling, because it was all there. And what was starting to come out was the piece of being able to feel. Just to feel. Just to feel. There's no right, there's no wrong. It was just there. Carrying that around with me for at that time about 3 decades had become unbearable without me knowing it was unbearable. I'd noticed, I was drinking more. There were misalignments showing up in my life. But I thought, it's okay. As long as I keep climbing, keep teaching, keep these relationships intact.
Do you think this is a common theme within men? Just gonna time travel as we talk. Absolutely. But you've been on the other side. You've asked the questions. You've seen the men come in with the nerves. As you've hosted many gatherings, with Man Aligned and Sacred Sons. And it's like this is the call to bring back rites of passage experience. And
Absolutely.
what we offer initiations, which is kind of like what we're describing, just that initiation into a men's space, into men's work, as it's called.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you see that? Do you see what you had in yourself in other men?
Unequivocally. I would say the most common red thread I see with men is grief. It's
Really?
there.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Overwhelm and grief. Guys holding it together, whether it's a stance, but they're right there. They're right there. And just to be seen, to be witnessed, to say, hey, bro, how you doing? I ask that question so often. And I have to remind brothers, busy is not how you're doing.
Yeah.
Busy is what you're doing. But how are you? How are you? How's that thing in your chest that keeps you alive? And if you can't access that thing, let's just take a breath. How does it feel to just take some deep breaths? When that red thread starts to be gently invited out, what I find is stories upon stories. And often the languaging that's used is not, it's pretty self-depreciating. I'm here because I screwed up and I did this. I'm here because I have to be here. I'm here because there's nowhere else for me to go. Those are pretty self-depreciating pieces. You're here because you belong here. You're here because you're invited to come here.
You're here because this is necessary.
Exactly.
What it means to be human at this time in the situation we have come into.
Exactly.
It's like, that's what I'm, when I bring the idea of like the normalization of the ritual of initiation,